Well, hello, family from around the world, around the planet, wherever you are right now. Greetings. I got the news about 11 hours ago that Gabon had uh, gained their freedom. They took it. It wasn't given to them. They took it. If you read history, you see many places where France uh, gave independence to certain countries in the 60s. Well, if someone give you independence, if someone give you freedom, is it really freedom? You have to take it. True freedom is what you take. Every generation have to take their freedom. No one is going to really give you freedom. You have to take it. No one is going to give you independence. You have to take it. So as I was listening to the news and I was thinking, well, what should I say about this? And I'm not a news reporter. Uh, so, what's really going on in West Africa? What's really going on around the planet right now? That's the question. What's happening? Uh, so, we want to know what's going on. Marvin Gaye had a song back in the, I think, late 60s or early 70s. What's going on? Okay. So, that's what we want to know today. What's going on? Uh, is, is white supremacy falling? Uh, uh, is this the fall of white supremacy around the world? That's what we're dealing with here. Uh, we got to get down to the true matter of what's happening. Is it France? Well, France is a European nation. Now the Holy Scriptures. I know I don't want to get into uh, scriptures that much, but I do have one scripture here. Luke 21 and 24, the Holy Scripture. And it says here, and they shall by the edge of the sword, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captives into nations, all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles unto the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled, until the times of the Gentiles come to an end. Gentiles, if you read Genesis 10, Japheth descendants went to the Isles of the Gentiles. Japheth descendants went to the Isles of the Gentiles. And later on in the scriptures, Paul went to preach to the Gentiles. Paul did not come into the African continent preaching. He went to the Gentile nations. Well, who are the Gentile nations? The Gentile nations are the Europeans. And that's who we're uh, getting all this trouble from right now. Okay? The Europeans are the ones that enslaved us, even though Paul went to preach to them. The Europeans did not bring the gospel to Africa. Africa took the gospel to the Europeans. So Paul went. Paul was, you can say, a African. Israel, Jerusalem, that was all part of classical Africa back then. And the Bible is simply talking about and black peoples, melanated peoples. That's what the scripture is talking about mostly. Melanated peoples. It does mention the Gentiles, but mostly the Old Covenant and basically the New Covenant, talking about until you get in the book of Revelations, in the book of Acts, the books that Paul written, because he ministered to the Gentiles. He's talking basically about Europeans. But the Old Covenant and Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you're mostly talking about melanated peoples, black peoples. So Paul went out and preached to the Gentiles. The Gentiles broke away from the African church, and they started their own thing. Okay, so it's their time now. Notice what it says here. The times of the Gentiles. This is their time, the times of the Gentiles. And the times of the Gentiles will be fulfilled. will come to an end. It's coming to an end. Now, 500 years ago, there was a lot of things happening. They was coming into our communities with their Bible and cross in their hand and a gun, a knife in the other hand to force us to do things that they wanted us to do. They had their own interests. And the Gentiles have their own interests today. Notice how you hear the European countries always talking about their interests. We got to protect our interests. All European nations say that. We have to protect our interests. I don't care if they're in your house. They think they have interests in your house, and they're gonna protect their interests in your house, in your home, in your land. So that's what they're saying in Africa now. Their interests. They have interest in your communities, okay? They want to go into your community and take. And that's what the Gentiles did. Simply what they did. And that's what this conflict is going on in Africa right now with France. France is a Gentile nation. And you read their history, they did their own things. They did the things that interest them. Now they say they go by Christianity, Christians, Gentile Christians, okay? But they are not going by, if they're talking about the Most High kingdom is established on justice and righteousness and truth. Justice, well, the Gentile kingdom justice? Look at the United States Empire. Is it justice? Does it have a foundation of justice? Does France have a foundation of justice? Does Germany has a foundation of justice? Does the British Empire? And I have written down. I'm gonna discuss some of the empires here. I've written them down. I want this to be a short video. The Greeks, Alexander the Greek. So you know about that. The Roman Empire. Okay, we're talking about Gentile empires. The Roman empires. Okay, Spain. We know about them. Belgium. You know about Belgium. How the old king came up into Africa and killed millions of our peoples. King Leopold came into Africa and killed millions. There was a Holocaust. Just one man caused a great Holocaust. Killed millions and cut the hands of many of our peoples there and feet just because of his interests in Africa. Okay. Spain, Portuguese, we know about them, how they came in there. They was one of the first to come in to venture into Africa. Okay, and begin to enslave our peoples and take resources and exploit our peoples for hundreds of years. And you got the Dutch. The Dutch went to a place not too long ago where they had a nice, beautiful building on top. But down below in the dungeons, they had our peoples in bondage. They would harm us down below. And this was back in the 1700s. But it was just like a beautiful building on top. But below, they were serving their God on top, which is the white Jesus. But the Africans, the one was inspired to write the Bible. The Caucasians did not write the Bible. The Europeans did not write the Bible. African people wrote the Bible. Simple as that. And it's the white image they have of Jesus, European Jesus with long hair. That's not Yeshua. Okay, that's their God. That's a false God. That's not Yeshua. They're serving a God that caused them to do these things. They're following after him. Okay, so the Greeks. Okay, you got the Dutch. Okay, you read the Dutch history. Find out what did they do. Well, you know, they went around killing people. Okay, the British. Okay, I want to get to I get to the British last, almost last. The Germans. So we know what the Germans did. And the Germans want to pose sanctions on Niger now. And it's all about the pipeline going from Nigeria into the European countries. They need that pipeline to go there. And normally when the Gentiles normally work together. Okay, so they're trying and they're debating and they're trying to decide what they're going to do about that pipeline. So don't think where they're not thinking about things, even though you don't hear it reporting, you don't hear a report on the news in the U.S. on national news networks, but they're thinking about it. They're discussing it because they need that pipeline going to Europe. Okay, and we're talking about the Gentiles nations. Okay, that'll make it easier to explain. We say Europeans, sometimes we say white supremacists. Okay, white supremacy. Well, why do we say white supremacy? Because they went around the world, and this is their time. The last 600, 700 years was their time. And they went around and they took things from peoples around the world. Okay, they came into Africa. They came into North America, and they annihilated many peoples here. There was millions of peoples already here. There was civilizations already here in North America. In South America, they came there, and they annihilated many peoples there in South America. Okay, everywhere they went to Australia, and they annihilated many peoples there. I'm talking about the Gentile nations. And then the Gentiles went over into India, and they annihilated millions of peoples there. Okay, so we're talking about the Gentiles nations. Okay, and sometimes we say they're white supremacy. Sometimes we say they're Europeans, but they all are Gentiles because Paul went to preach to the Gentiles. Now you take out the time sometimes and you find out the areas that Paul went to preach in. He took the good news to those nations. And those nations, most of them, I'm not saying all of them, but most of them, a great percentage that came back into our countries, into our land, and they brought back bad news. Paul gave them the good news, but they brought back bad news and say, like they walked in some of our countries, and they just placed their flags in the ground and say, well, God told us to give us this, told you to give us this. This is our land now. Well, you see, they're serving a different God than the God of the Bible, not the Hebrew God. They're serving a different one. Okay? That's why they have the Caucasian Jesus. That's not the same God from the Hebrew Bible. That's not the same God that Paul was talking about. Okay, because his kingdom is established on justice and righteousness and love and peace. That's why the African people, you see, the Gentiles, the Bible speaks of the Gentiles. When Christ comes back, he's going to be fighting against them. Or they're going to be fighting against him, put it that way. But the Gentiles, that all they think about is building weapons. So they can go, they utilize mostly everything they put their hands on, they weaponize it. Like foods, agriculture, anything they put their hands on, they weaponize it. Like sanctions. They're always talking about sanctions. If you hear somebody talk about sanctions, most likely it's a Gentile. Sometimes our people, we shouldn't get in that habit of putting sanctions on our brothers and sisters. Some of the countries in Africa, like ECOWAS, was influenced by Gentile peoples, by a white supremacist country, European country, to impose sanctions on their own peoples. See, they'll try to trick you into fighting your own peoples. They conquer you, they divide you, they conquer you. And they'll try to influence you to put sanctions on your own peoples. My dear brother, you need to feed your peoples. The peoples in Niger, you need to feed them. Don't listen to the Gentiles. You need to feed them. Those are your brothers. When they came hundreds of years ago, they mistreated all of us. And even South Africa today, they fought them for many years. Many years. I think it was about 100 years. They still fighting them. Okay, and you know, we have a certain nature in Africa, a certain consciousness. Our main mission is not to go out and kill peoples around the world, but the people that came into Africa, as soon as they had opportunity to come in, when they find some medication, so that they could enter in, there was, I'll get to that later. As soon as they had opportunity, they came on in there to get the resources with their Bible, with their sword in their hands. Okay, and we invited them in. She showed them kindness, and they came in because they had their own interests. Okay, and it doesn't change. They have their own interests. Don't pay no attention. It don't make no difference what religion you are. They don't care. You say, well, I'm a Christian, I'm a saint. It don't make no difference. I'm a Muslim. It don't make no difference to them what you are. We all. That's why, you know, I remember Malcolm X says he leave his religion at home. So that's why I'm not going to mention the scriptures too much on this page, but I'm going to do it today. But I'm not trying to feed you any kind of religion. I just want you to know the times of the Gentiles is winding down. Okay, and Malcolm X did say, by any means necessary, we got to gain our freedom. You know, and that's why we got to stand together. We all have to stand against white supremacists. We got to stand against it, you know, and we by any means necessary. So that's what these brothers are doing over in Niger and Gabon and Western Africa, and those other countries need to be free. All the brothers in those nations need to stand up that has been mistreated and being mistreated by France every day. That means you're being mistreated by white supremacy. That's why they stick together. They knew for years that France was doing these things. Even in 1805, in that area, when Haiti gained their freedom, their independence, they took it from France. The French came back with warships and cannons and enforced them to pay them reparation. They forced them to pay them a colonial tax. And I think it was 1948 that Haiti finally paid the last bill, somewhere in the 1940s. Haiti finally paid that last bill. That's why Haiti is struggling today. It's because of white supremacy. It's because of the Europeans. It's because of the Gentile nations. That's why Haiti is struggling today. That's why I said we need to go free Haiti. These people have no respect of persons. Now, I'm not talking about nobody in particular here, but I'm just going by what the scriptures. I'm talking about the Holy Scriptures. And, you know, sometimes we say the Bible, but when you read that thing, it has been tampered with. Many different translations. So they try to influence